Kevin, it's good to have you on Halftime. How are you doing today?
Looking forward to the draft this weekend.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the draft. I tell you what, it doesn't sound like the college head coaches are looking forward to the draft just because of the time of the year it's located. And it wasn't that long ago that it felt like there was going to be some like a symbiosis with college baseball and the Major League draft. You remember the 2020 draft originally was scheduled for Omaha, for being at the College World Series. I think it was the first couple of rounds. And obviously the pandemic shifted everything, and now they've kept the draft at the All-Star game, which is making life just really difficult for college coaches right now to know who's coming, who's going. Could there be a worse time for the Major League draft than when they're having it?
Yeah, and the kids that get picked in rounds 10 through 20, which history shows that's going to be an older kid, most likely, low signing bonus, that might have the chance to come back to school. They have 12 days to decide. And that gives the coaching staff 12 days of misery to decide, okay, what's the roster going to look like? So what Coach Van Horn and his staff have done is gone out and get as many kids as they can that fit their system and to be ready for anything. Because that's what they're at. That's the point they're at right now, Phil.
You're not kidding. I mean, you got 16 incoming freshmen as of now before the draft, and to my count, with the additions of Hudson Polk, who was the backup catcher for Oklahoma, and Jordan Sprinkle, shortstop from UCSB, and Julian Bosnick, left-hand pitcher from South Carolina. There are also 16 transfers that are on their way in. So really, I mean, when this comes down to, could you see potentially anybody that has committed to transfer into Arkansas renege on that depending on what happens in the draft? Because there might be Arkansas players that were part of this last College World Series team. I'm thinking Connor Nolan. I'm thinking Peyton Paulette potentially, even Robert Moore, that still could and theoretically might even come back and play another year.
Yeah, Bill, we saw it last year with Jalen Battles, and that was a scenario that played out to where he didn't get the money he was expected to have, and he said, I want to come back and make a run. So that could happen this year. I think the one to look at, maybe Jordan Sprinkle. Yeah, he did commit to the Razorbacks. He's projected to be a top 5, top 6 round pick. Robert Moore is right there on the fringe. Coming into the season, he was kind of like Sprinkle. He was looked at as a top 1, first 2 round pick. The offense wasn't there, but the defense is something that you just can't teach. He's got those intangibles that really play at the professional level. So, yeah, it could happen, but you've got a backlog of infielders. It really happened in the 2020 class as well, Phil. If you look back, you had Mason Wynn, Ethan Bates, Caden Wallace, Robert Moore, all of those guys that came in. I think he had 6 or 7 shortstops signed in that top 5 class. And out of that, Robert Moore was the only one that came in. He ended up at second base. So you get the athletes, put them where they need to be. And it's like the Josenberg kid from Kansas. He's going to be an outfielder at Arkansas. I don't think he's going to play at infield. So they've got a lot to work on, and the roster is going to change quite a bit over the next month and a half. So
let me ask about 3 guys who are going to be drafted, but theoretically could make the decision to come back. And I think one of them would be Connor Nolan, the other Robert Moore, who I was almost convinced that he was just going to go into the draft because he came early to Arkansas to start his pro career early. But now I'm reading that there's legit thoughts that he might actually come back to Arkansas, and Peyton Paulette would be the other one. Who do you think here has the more difficult decision?
I think it's Robert Moore. I'm going to agree with you on that because, yeah, he came in early, but he has the added year, so he has a little bit of leverage. And if he decided to bet on himself and come back and say, look, I didn't put up the kind of numbers I know I'm capable of, I want to improve my stock. I'm going to bet on myself and possibly move over to shortstop and market myself a little bit better at a second position that's going to drive that stock up even higher. So I think Robert has the decision, and I think he holds all the chips and the cards right now to where, he has a great fallback plan in terms of, look, I can come back and be a veteran. and be a leader, be a captain on this team after coming in as an 18-year-old in January at what it should have been a senior year. Connor Nolan, the thing I think about with Connor is, could his stock get any higher than what it is right now? I think it's a love for the University of Arkansas, and how long does he want to play professional baseball? That's the thing that it comes down to with Connor is what's going to be the best situation for him, whether it be go back to Arkansas, make a little bit of NIL money, or start that professional career and get it going. Because, as you know, pitchers have a time clock. There's so many innings that can be put on an arm. And then third, Peyton Paulette, I do think he signed. There's been a lot of interest. The Padres are a team that come to mind that were really interested in him. I know when I spoke with him, he had talked about 15 to 18 clubs when he went out there for a physical. He's ready to start throwing again. So I think Peyton's going to sign and before too long be up there in the system.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, you just mentioned how you don't know if Connor Nolan's draft stock can get any higher than it can now, especially like you said, being a pitcher. Every inning that you pitch for Arkansas is theoretically one inning that you're not going to be able to pitch for the big club or in the system, getting up to there. So it's a little bit different of the situation. But with hindsight being 2020, and you brought up Jalen Battles and his decision to come back last year, did he improve his draft stock over the course of this year? Do you think, with hindsight being 2020, that he made the right decision?
I do, and because the body of work that clubs got to look at. Yeah, he came from McLennan. He got to be exposed to SEC play, but you saw an increase in the batting average. You just saw a better skill set all the way around, and his tools got better as the season went along. He became somebody just like he was in the last year in the SEC tournament. You saw more of that guy throughout the year, I believe, and clubs really like that. You know, he's a top 150 prospect. If you look at Baseball America, I think he's number 136, and Jordan Sprinkle's 146. If you look at a top 10 list, no matter who made it up, people would have put Jordan Sprinkle ahead of Jalen Battles coming into the season, and I think now that is flip-flop.
Kevin, we had this conversation, I think, right after the season ended. Me and Phil were talking about the difference between D1 transfers and guys coming from the JUCO level, and that, you know, even though sometimes JUCO can have a bad little stain of it, type of feel to it, that there's different situations, different things, and, you know, Dave Van Horn almost a 50-50 between JUCO and D1 transfers. If you were bringing guys into your program, kind of just like on a base plane, which would you prefer to have? Guys that have been in the D1 program or the JUCO guys, which you watch some of the JUCO guys, there's nobody that wants it or works harder than some of those guys that have been riding buses, that have been, you know, in not so great facilities, that have been on some really hard playing surfaces around the JUCO level. So there's a lot of good and negative kind of around some of these guys, but just like on a base level, which would you prefer to have?
And they're called JUCO bandits for a reason, and everything that you talked about just hit upon. Those facilities are not luxurious as far as travel, things like that. They do have a certain grit about them. If at its base, and I had to compare a D1 transfer that was a starter versus a JUCO starter, I'm taking the D1 starter at this moment because they've played at that level. Now, JUCO guys, they see top-end arms. Jacob Mizrowski from Crowder College is a 98 to 101 arm that's probably going to get drafted. Cody Adcock was the number 2. After that, it kind of drops off a little bit. That's a lot different from, say, in the ACC when you're going up against a Miami number 3 starter and a JUCO number 3 starter. So that's where looking at the Division I level and just looking at Cody Franks is a perfect example. The fans and the staff at the University of Nebraska are sick to their stomach that he left. He was going to be a dude for them. And he doesn't light up the velo gun, but he knows how to pitch. He's going to fit into Coach Hobbs' system very well. So that's where I come down. Nothing against the JUCO guys. There's some good ones, and it's on a case-by-case basis. if they're going to fit into a program, why they went to JUCO in the first place, as if they're going to fit in a system or not.
Yeah, it's different guy to guy. I think you got to take it on a case-by-case basis. And, I mean, case in point here,
yep.
You'd mention a guy like Tavian Josenberger, who's the shortstop, the second baseman from Kansas, probably not going to play the infield at Arkansas just because there's too many good infielders, which would include Harold Call, shortstop from San Jac. That's the same junior college that also produced Jalen Battles. They seem to grow shortstops on trees there, at least pretty good ones. I keep hearing, and you told me as well, you expect Harold Cole to be the starting shortstop for Arkansas in 2023.
That's exactly right. He got invited to the MLB Draft League this year, and that was before Jordan Sprinkle. I think Jordan Sprinkle is going to get drafted. But Harold Cole just showed the intangibles that you look at for an Arkansas shortstop, and some of the things that Jalen Battles did well, Harold does some of those same things. He came out of Georgia and was a top 50 prospect going into that 2020 draft, the 5-round draft. He ended up honoring his commitment to UNC, and then it didn't work out there. He went to San Jac and turned into an elite player at that position. So I think he's one of those guys that can come in right away, and it's like you said, on a case-by-case basis. He was one that really didn't like his situation where he was at. Let me go get some playing time and get innings, because that's the thing at the bottom line is where can I go and get on the field and improve my stock? Because if I want to be a pro player, San Jac has showed that it can produce those MLB guys, the SEC, the Power 5 guys. So let me put myself in a position to where I can improve my stock, my marketability, and get to that next level. And that's exactly what Cole did.
Kevin, if you could fit this into just about 60 seconds, because we're about out of time. There's just a couple of high schoolers that I want to ask about that are committed to Arkansas that are probably going into the draft. The highest rated is right-hand pitcher Cole Phillips out of Bern, Texas. I know he had Tommy John surgery, but he looks like he's still going to be drafted. And Mason Neville, who's the only high school outfielder that they've got coming in. He's from Nevada. Where do you see each of those guys going, or maybe even making it to campus?
Yeah, Cole Phillips was supposed to report to campus on July the 2nd and go through summer orientation and classes. He did not do that. He's rehabbing in Houston right now. I don't think he makes it to campus. And Mason Neville is really the kind of 50-50 guy. He's a top 120 player, kind of like Cody Bellinger. That's the comparison that MLB scouts compare him to. 6'3", 190, really good fluid runner. I think he could be the starting center fielder at Arkansas if he makes it to campus. But I don't think he will. I think he signs, and I think he's going to be a round 2 to round 4 pick.
Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's Wimbledon Finals, Major League Baseball, the latest fighting news, and even next season's early NFL futures. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV to get the bonus and get into the action. Bet online, where the game starts.